Welcome to Community Spotlight, where we'll spend a few minutes together learning more about the issues impacting us in the Twin Cities.
Today on Community Spotlights, we're going to spend some time again with Lambert Fisher, who's a licensed marriage family therapist working with the Christian Heart Counseling. They have the locations around the Twin Cities metro area. ChristianHeartCounseling.com is the website. And we want to focus our attention on just the big topic of mental health, anxiety, and depression, which, as we understand more about just mental health concerns, that this is a growing and kind of a common problem across our country.
Indeed. And part of the challenge is trying to figure out how much is growing and how much is already there. There's been a long-term stigma around mental health that says only people with certain problems have mental health struggles. And I'm going to make sure I'm not one of those people. And if I ever see any signs of that, I'm going to fight it internally or externally, whatever the case may be, to not be one of those people. And over time, that stigma is starting to change in a positive way, because we realize that mental health struggles are not about, well, are you one of those people or not, as opposed to recognizing that life struggles are on a spectrum. Even things like depression or anxiety, you can have a lot of depression or anxiety, or a little bit, or somewhere in between. And it's all about how we cope with the various life experiences that we have, some things being physiologically influenced on the inside, some things being environmentally, and some things with a combination of both. But if we take the stigma out and say it's okay to have difficulties sometimes, the question is, what are we going to do about it? How can we understand ourselves better, understand those around us better, and offer as much support as possible so that we can all live healthily and happily together?
Well, before we talk about maybe what we can do about it, can we do a little defining, or at least some categories? I mean, how do we define if we have depression, or I guess everybody probably has anxiety.
Well, to a certain degree, that has been a conversation over the past year and a half or so, with an increase in awareness of anxiety just with the pandemic, regardless of where people stand on it, with beliefs about medical health concerns or political conversations. Regardless of all that, it's significantly impacted our country and the world as a whole, and has brought a level of uncertainty, a level of unknown about the future. And that technically is anxiety. Now, whether it qualifies as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that somebody may associate with a significant, impactful experience that's grander than anything they can imagine before, or just a low level, I'm not quite sure, as I was yesterday, as I was 2 years ago, about what the future held. There's a spectrum in between. And so when we talk about mental health struggles, we talk about anything that can be debilitating to our functioning in some way, mental, physical, as a whole. What things make it difficult for us to interact with anyone emotionally, relationally, job-wise, in a healthy way, and that counts. So it doesn't have to be whether you get a diagnosis by a professional or not. That's just more of a name that describes our symptoms. So whenever we think about somebody who has depression or has anxiety, whether you get the label from a professional or not, those labels are not labels on your forehead that describes a certain type of person. It describes a certain collection of symptoms that you may be wrestling with at a certain amount of time, so that you can get some help in identifying those and having some strategies to work through them.
Well, let's talk about that. What are some strategies to work through them? Is this something where we can sort of pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps? And I think sometimes as Christians we assume, well, I'm going to pray more, I'm going to read the Bible more, and all those things are valuable and good, but maybe there's more to it.
There's definitely more to it, and it all depends on not, again, the type of person you are, but the degree of need. There's certain times when I have a injury and I put it on a Band-Aid and I'm fine. And there's sometimes when I have an injury and I need to go to a doctor to get a certain treatment. And there's sometimes I have an injury and I need to go to a hospital. I need to get more intensive support. And mental health is a similar kind of way. Sometimes we can have a mental health struggle that's, I'm uncertain, I'm scared, I'm wrestling with something, and a family member, a friend is just what I need. I need somebody to listen, to hear, bounce things off of, and get a different perspective. Other times, I may need to go see a counselor, not because, I am one of those kinds of people. No, because I can benefit from not just another perspective, but a trained perspective who has particular skills that can help me see things I didn't see before, who has certain experiences that can enhance what I need to do and give me ideas that neither me nor my family or friends can come up with. It's not a stigma associated with that, or doesn't need to be. And then there's other times when we need more intensive services if we're worrying about self-harm, or I may need to be in a place with 24-hour care. Now, because, again, that's labeling who I am. That says this is impacting me so much, I need that level of support, with the goal that I would need that forever, because they're there to help me and to help empower me to get the skills, to learn the skills and the tools that I need so that I can handle it on my own. And so if we recognize that, then we can all acknowledge we all need help at some point in time. It's just a matter of identifying what help we need and getting the right kind of help so that we can then be empowered to do it on our own.
As maybe a parent or a spouse, or maybe just a concerned relative, we see somebody that seems like they're having a hard time. Are there some signs we should look for, and then what should be a first step?
In general, because there's a lot of different types of mental health struggles, from anxiety to depression to behavioral health concerns, there's a general rule of looking for something that's out of the ordinary. And that's not out of our own ordinary, but out of their ordinary. They're a little bit more interactive than they're used to, of the hyper sort. They're a little bit more scattered in their thought process. It's getting hard to track. Something must be different. Or their mood is significantly lower. They're usually smiling and interacting, but they're all of a sudden quiet. They're all of a sudden angry when they're not usually. Something out of the ordinary would be a good sign to say, hey, is something wrong? Did something change? And acknowledging that, initiating that is often the great thing, because, well, if we just sit back and say, well, if it's something important, they'll tell me. Or lack of assertiveness or self-shame or uncertainty enough may be the very thing holding them back from saying anything. So look for signs of change. Initiate some support, not what's wrong with you, which assumes they have to defend themselves in order to talk to you, as opposed to, hey, something's different. You look different. You look less of this or more of that. Is everything all right? And you giving that invitation, sometimes people say kind of casually, what, were they waiting for a personal invitation? Yes. In a feelings world, yes, that's the best thing you can give. And then offer a listening ear, and then consider that progression. Sometimes that listening ear is enough to empower them to move on. If it's not, then you helping them find the next resource. Hey, this was great, but if you need more than that, maybe I can help you find and initiate that next step along the way, whether it be a therapist or more intensive type of support. Then you may be the greatest thing to help get them the support that you can't provide on your own.
Well, and offer some encouragement too, that, even if we're going through a season perhaps of some anxiety, depression, that there is hope and there is help.
Indeed. There's very few situations that are once and for all stay exactly the same. They may look different, they may sound different, but when we realize that we can do a lot on our own, and with support we can overcome a lot, then we can be reminded of the fact that we're not the first person who has experienced this. Other people have gone through things, and there are ways to get past it. It's just a matter of finding the right support to get that. If you run out of ideas, yes, try to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, and that's fine. But once you run out of ideas and you still need some support, then that's not weakness. That's not you are so far gone. That's, hey, let me take that next step and see if I can find someone who has a few more ideas that I haven't had. And that's really at the key. I've tried everything there is. Actually, you tried everything you can think of. Before you really conclude you tried everything, find someone else, maybe even a trained someone else who may be able to add in a few more things to your list, because that next thing, you tried all 10 things, that 11th or 12th thing might be the thing that turns things around. And if that's you, give yourself the acceptance and the perseverance to keep on trying. And if that's somebody else, don't judge them for not having figured it out the first time. Be the one to help them find that next idea.
Getting some wise counsel and advice today from Lambers Fisher. Lambers is a licensed marriage and family therapist serving with Christian Heart Counseling. They have a number of locations around the Twin Cities, and you can find out more at ChristianHeartCounseling.com, ChristianHeartCounseling.com. Lambers, thanks for the good insight today and for being an important provider in this key area.
My pleasure. I hope it helps.
Thanks for spending a few minutes with us on Community Spotlight. We'll see you again next week.